Welcome back to the Computer Hardware and OS Essentials lecture series. I created these custom lectures based on A+ certification program, but with few enhancements to improve your IT technical skills and knowledge. If you haven't seen my previous videos, I will post a link in the description for the playlist. This would be our 20th lecture, and I will cover Windows backup and disaster recovery procedures. The primary objectives of this lecture is to learn planning a backup and recovery plan based on what data or information to be backed up, learn how to backup user data and system image, and some of these concepts are already posted on my NetIT Geeks YouTube channel. While not all demonstrations are done there, I will try to cover most of the demonstrations related to the A+ certification program in upcoming weeks. So this would be a very brief lecture today compared to our previous lectures, because I will be just going over basic concepts associated with backups, but the demonstrations are already posted on my YouTube channel. Backup procedures. Backup is basically creating an extra copy of a data or software. So what we do is we use the original file and then make a copy of that, or original software and make a copy of that software. And if the original file become damaged or destroyed, you can use that backup. The ways to lose data includes the system failures, viruses, file corruption, or some other problems where file cannot be read anymore. That will result in inability to access that file or even the software, and that's where the backup copies will come into play. Never trust important data to only one media. So never ever put all your eggs in one basket, in other words. So if you have very important critical data, you should always keep a copy of that data on another device or in a cloud-based backup system, such as the Microsoft OneDrive, for example. Keep in mind that backup is not redundancy. I have reiterated this in the past, but I'm going to reiterate again. It is very important that you understand that the backup is not redundancy. For example, RAID is redundancy. Backup is not RAID. RAID is not backup. I have already done few lectures on RAID, including some demonstration on how to create a RAID 5 array using Windows. You can check it out on my YouTube channel, but keep in mind the backup is not RAID or redundancy. Redundancy is not backup. So those are two different concepts. Make sure you keep that separate in your head during your A+ certification exam. Planning for disaster recovery. Decisions to make for a backup and recovery plan include to decide on the type of backup, decide on the backup destination, decide on the backup software, and decide how simple or complex your backup strategy is going to be. So when you're deciding on the type of backup, you need to think about the file level backup, image level backup, and separate plan for critical applications backup. So what that basically means is that file level backup includes things like .txt file, .doc files, the Excel files, image files, or CAD document files if you are working for an engineering company, for example. So you need to think about the lowest level, which is the file level, the level which user usually directly interact with. That's the file level backup. So basically we are backing up the user data, user created, generated information. That would be the file level backup. Some software also creates certain files that are critical, such as those accounting software that has specialized files that may need to be backed up. So that's what the file level backup is going to do. Image level backup, what that's going to do is take an image of the current operating system with all its software, drivers and everything, applications, everything within it, and creating a mirror image of that or an image of that. Image level backups are usually done through enterprise softwares, including the Microsoft Server 2022. It has a way to create image level backup of all the connected devices, for example. So image level backup will ensure that not only the operating system is backed up when you are backing up the image level, but you can also back up like drivers and everything associated with it. So if something goes wrong with the operating system, especially with servers, for example, Windows Server 2022 or Windows Server 2019, for example, an image level backup of that server will allow you to bring that server back online if a disaster happens in a very short period of time, because you don't need to go back and install every single piece of information. You just can get an image level backup and reinstall that information. There is a caveat associated with that when there is a domain controller. So I will go into that in depth when we cover in depth how domain controllers work. That is not part of the A+ certifications lecture series, but typically the image level backup can also be used on servers, but it easily can be used on end devices for sure, like the Windows 10 Professional, Windows 11, for example. Image level backup would be perfect for your end users. As far as the domain controllers and servers goes, there are some caveats associated with that, especially with the domain controllers. So I will go into that in detail in a later lecture series, not associated with this. But keep in mind, the file level backup is different from image level backup. Image level backup may include user files, but typically do not include user files to keep the backup file size smaller. So keep that in mind. So typically in an organization, image level backup does not include user files, while the file level backup does not include a image of the operating systems or drivers, vice versa. Separate backup plans for critical applications can also be implemented depending on your organizations. So keep that in mind. So if you have a critical application in your organization, make sure that you have a separate backup plan for that. That may be more useful than your file level or image level backups. And obviously you need to decide where you're going to have those backup destination files, so where the backup files will be located. It is recommended that you do not keep all your eggs in one basket by putting all your backup files in the same location as where the company is operating. For example, if you have two office buildings, maybe backup data between the office buildings. Don't put it in the same building, the same backups, because that would be a bad idea. For example, if there's a fire in the building, if you have a file level and image level backup of your server and your user clients on the same building, what's the use? You can't get access to that because it got burned down too, right? So maybe you should think about remote backup. Decide on the backup software. So consider purchasing a third-party backup software. But however, keep in mind that, as I mentioned, there are features that already built into Microsoft utilities, both on end devices and servers, that may be more than enough for you, but the third-party backup software may offer more features and more flexibility than the built-in Microsoft feature. Decide how simple or complex your backup methodology should be. So that's another thing that you need to think about. Large organizations, for example, might require backups to be documented daily, scheduled at certain times of the day or night, and recovery plan tested regularly. So depending on the organization you work, you need to think about how complex or simple your backup plans should be. Decision also includes considering ways of ensuring business continuity, because that is a critical thing in modern day business infrastructures. So a loss of power or internet connection can interfere with the business productivity. So make sure there are some backups of your power as well as internet connections, such as having multi internet service providers providing internet connection to your site, for example. So don't put every aspect of your network pointed towards the same internet service provider, for example. Use an uninterrupted power supply, also known as UPS, to power when voltage drops during brownouts or short-term blackouts. You can also add generators that would kick in the long-term blackouts, where you will have those generators will take care of the power needs of your servers and devices within the building. After backup plan is in place, test the recovery plan. So if you have a backup plan in place, but you never test the recovery plan, that is pretty dumb way to handle the situation. Because what happens is when the recovery is really needed, if that recovery plan doesn't work, then that's going to be bad, right? So actually you should not only test your backup plan, you should also need to test the recovery plan. So to test the recovery process, erase a file and use the recovery procedure to verify that you can restore that file from the backup. Keep backups in a safe place and routinely test them. That's another thing a lot of people sometimes forgets. A lot of IT technicians, especially in small businesses and small enterprises, you need to also make sure that you keep the backups in a safe place and you test them routinely. So they should keep under a lock and key. So if you have actual physical space that you keep these backup files, such as a network closet, a server closet, for example, you need to make sure that the server is locked and it is in a place where it is physically secured from outside threats or inside threats. And in case of fire, keep the backup files offsite, as I mentioned before, and routinely verify backups are good by performing a test recovery of backup file or folder. As I mentioned at the top here, you can delete a file or folder that is not critical, or make a backup of that on a separate system, and then test your backup and recovery system, main backup and recovery system, see if you can recover that file or folder. When you are testing by erasing files or folders, make sure you don't do it on a critical file or a folder. You can do it on a test file or a test folder. So keep that in mind. You don't want to go and test your backup and recovery plan on your main accounting server, for example, and with the main accounting files. So that would be a really bad idea. So keep that in mind. So when you're testing it, use test files, not the real files itself. Backing up user data and system image. Tools offered by Windows 11, 10, 8, 7 for backups. Those includes the Windows 10 and 11 that offers the file history or backup and restore options. Windows 8 uses the file history but not backup and restore options because it doesn't have that. But Windows 8 offers the receiving command. It's RECIMG command to create custom refresh images. So you can use that command to do that. Windows 7 offers backup and restore to backup user data and to create a system image. A system image is a backup of the entire Windows volume, including the Windows installation, applications, user settings, data, drivers, etc. The image is stored in a single file with a .wim file extension and is a compressed file that contains many related files such as the drivers, as I mentioned before. The Windows 10, 11, 8 file history options includes the backing up the user data stored in several locations, including documents, music, videos, and desktop folders and offline OneDrive files. To use it, basically you connect your backup device and go to Settings app, click Update and Security, then click Backup. Then you use the Add a Device and the Windows searches for the usable device. And once Windows find a usable device, then you can select the drive or click Show All Network Locations to find the select a drive on the network. So you can actually back up to a network drive. And you can manage those backup options by clicking More Options. And on the backup options window, you can set how often the backups are made and how long and how old the backup should be kept, etc, etc. And the file history can also be accessed through the control panel as well. I have already done a video on this and I will post a link in the description. So restore files and folders in file history is very simple. To restore a file or a folder from backup, you basically open the file history window from the control panel and click Restore Personal Files. Use the left-right arrow key on the right side of the green button at the bottom of the window to select a backup and drill down into the backup to find the file or folder. Select an item and click Restore button. And to save to a different location, you can right click and restore option and click restore to another option like another location. Another way to restore a file or folder from a backup is to use the File Explorer or Windows Explorer. Right click the file or folder, select restore previous versions from the shortcut menu, and then you can basically copy the file or folder before you restore in case you want to revert back to the other copy. So again, I went through a whole bunch of information there that is not actually very useful by just reading off a slide. So what I have done is I have posted a video on my YouTube channel called Enable Previous Versions in Windows. There is a slightly different title on the actual video itself. Basically how to enable the previous versions to restore, like recover your Windows files. I will leave a link in the description of this video so you can actually go ahead and watch that video, and that will explain everything that I just went over. Windows 11, 10 and 7 backup and restore. To save a backup and set up an ongoing backup schedule using backup and restore, you can open the control panel and click backup and restore, select the device or location to hold the backup. Then in the next box, select let me choose, so you can select the folder to backup and then click next. In the next box, select the folder you want to backup, click next to continue, verify the correct folder and libraries are selected and click OK. You can also change the frequency of how often this backup will be done in that window, and then you can review the backup settings and click save settings and run the backup. You can create a system image. So system images are basically points of images that created in a specific time or point that can be used to recover a failed Windows volume. And keep that in mind when you are creating those images. And some of the key points that you should be aware of is creating a system image takes some time, so it's not very quick. A system image includes an entire C drive or other drive on which the Windows is installed. Don't depend just on the system image as your backup. You can create a system image anytime after Windows is installed, and then you can use this image to recover from a failed hard drive. System image is mostly done for backing up the operating system as opposed to user data, even though the user data may be backed up on system image based on where the user data is located. System image is basically created for backing up your operating system itself. Backing up Windows system files with system protection. So Windows system protection can automatically back up system files and store them at regular intervals. These snapshots of systems are called restore points. So remember the restore points that you can create through the system image as well. So those are actually part of the Windows system protection. Those includes Windows system files and have changed since the last restore point was made. So each restore point is created based on whatever the files that has been changed since the last restore point is made. So restore points are not creating an entire restore point out of your entire system every single time it runs. It's only gonna create files that has been changed. So it's not gonna take up a lot of resources to do the operation. System restore can be accessed by rstrui.exe by running that command on the run command, and restores the system to its condition at the time a restore point was made. User data on the hard drive will not be altered, but you can affect install software and hardware, other user settings and password and operating systems configuration settings. The reason for that is in Windows system protection restore points, all of this information such as hardware drivers, user settings, password, operating system specific configurations are all saved to that restore point at the time of that operation is run. So when you restore a restore point that is really old, if you have updated, let's say, your graphic drivers for your NVIDIA graphic card, for example, that graphic card drivers will revert back to whatever the old driver the graphic card used to be at the time of the creation of that restore point. So keep that in mind. So if you create a restore point and updated a whole bunch of drivers and settings and password and everything, and then you go back and use the restore point to recover some your operating system, all of the work that you have done between the restore point and installing those software and drivers will be lost. So keep that in mind. To enable the system protection, basically the system protection is turned off by default in Windows 11 and Windows 10. To enable it, you need to open the control panel and open the system window. Click the system protection and make sure the protection is turned on the drive containing Windows. Restore points are normally kept in the folder under the C drive and the system volume information, and the restore points can take at least every 24 hours. So it can be taken around 24 hours and can use up to 15% of your disk space. So if the disk space gets too low, restore points are no longer made. So the restore points will stop making those restore points when the disk space gonna get really small. You can manually create restore points at any time using system protection tab of the system properties. And keep in mind, system protection is turned off by default both in Windows 11 and Windows 10. And I believe these steps described in A+ certification program outline to enable it, this is actually for Windows 10 and not for Windows 11. But I have already posted a video again demonstrating how you can enable or create a system restore point on Windows PCs. Again, I will leave a link in the description. You can check it out, and you should go ahead and watch that video if you're interested in learning the lab portion of this particular lecture. And that's everything for today for this A+ certification program lecture. Please thumbs up this video and subscribe to my channel. And until next time, good luck and have a nice day.